Right, good evening, people. Nice to see you all. Welcome to this listening session. For those on YouTube, listening in on YouTube, this is something we try and do on a regular session, on a regular monthly basis, getting all our members of the Wildlife Sound Recording Society to just hang out, share some ideas, share some recordings, and every now and then just show us what they've been up to. The theme for this evening session, as I'm sure you're aware, is the sound of summer. Now, I'm sure everybody can conjure up an image of a lazy summer afternoon, whether that's sitting on the beach trying to keep the seagulls away from your chips, or whether it's lying in golden fields of grass with crickets or locusts sort of flying about and ticking in everywhere. So we've asked people to sort of submit recordings that to them they associate with the sound of summer. To them it's a sound that immediately conjures summers. We'll just have a quick introductory round of everybody attending at the moment. Just name where you're from, and if you can just tell us your sound of summer, please. If we can start with you, Axel.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Axel Drioli. I'm a wildlife sound recordist and special designer, and I am currently on my own project called Wings Across Continents from my immersive production company brand called Sounding Wild with my brother Ario. We were following the bird migration through Europe and Africa, and we stop every month at a different migration hotspot, and we create an experience about the local migratory birds for local people using virtual reality and a 10 loudspeaker system. And my sound of summer is the European bee eater.
Excellent.
And you can listen to it later.
Thank you very much. Next on this, Dave.
Oh, well, I can't follow that really. Wow. Looking forward to hear some of that, Axel. Dave Williams, I live near Guildford, one of the noisiest places in the UK. So all my recording is done elsewhere really. Try and get away once a year to a quieter foreign country. This year I went to Sweden again. That's about it really. I've done nothing this summer because it's just far too noisy here. Far too noisy at all times, day and night.
So what's your sound? What do you associate with?
Oh, sound. I would say the skylark.
Skylark. Okay, excellent. Yeah. Mr. Brady.
Hi, good evening. My name's Ian Brady. I'm the membership secretary, so that's probably why that's why I know everybody's names and where you live. So yeah, my sound of summer is probably Swift, which I'm afraid have gone now. But yeah, screaming swifts, I think, have got to be the sound of summer for me.
Good. Right, Mr. Pratley.
Yes, I'm Paul Pratley. My sound of summer is probably a field of grasshoppers, which are unfortunately these days, yeah.
Okay. Right, Mr. Rock.
Hi, I'm Andrew Rock. I'm an amateur from Brisbane, and in summer here, if you're in the bush, it's cicadas droning on and on and on.
Okay. Andy.
Hi there. Yes, my sound is gulls.
And where you
we
from,
have a whole load of blackback gulls nesting and screaming around us, and that's my summer noise.
And where are you from, Andy? Where are you based?
In Dunfermline.
Ah, okay.
In Scotland. Yeah, we're more or less in the centre of the town.
Okay.
Centre of the suburbs, should I say.
Right. Thank you very much. Mr. Eggert.
Me, yes. Hello. I'm Bernd from Germany, north of Hamburg. And I try to record whenever there's an opportunity, which is not so easy. I try to get a gap, not a silent gap between overflying aircraft and noisy people. I recently was on the moorland, and late in the evening, all the visitors were gone, and I could record. At first, I recorded insects quite loud, grasshoppers, I say, or crickets. And then not sandpiper, marsh sandpiper. I think so.
And what is your sound of summer then, Frank? Bernd?
I haven't found nothing transported.
No.
Sorry.
What do you associate with summer?
Well, crickets.
Crickets.
Grasshoppers, yes.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Robertson.
Hello. Yes. We're in France in the Loire Valley area. We've got about 2.5 hectares of land, and it's got hard, mature hedges all around. So I can do quite a lot of recording where we are. It is noisy, even though it's rural. There's traffic a lot of the time. There's machinery, farm machinery, tractors, including my own sometimes. But there's quite a lot of interesting things. I mean, earlier this year I got a nightingale. I was saying earlier on, I was quite pleased we had nightingale the first time for several years. So I got a bit of recording of that. I presume that recounts as a spring recording rather than a summer one. But there are other things. There was some, we get golden orioles, and you can never quite predict where they're going to be. We've got a line of poplar trees, and there was some very interesting songs from the poplar trees, which I managed to get a bit of recording of, and I sent that one in for this session. What I've been doing recently is trying to get stone curlews. We get stone curlews, but it's impossible to know when they're going to appear. If I do a night recording, you often hear them, usually fairly distant, but occasionally quite close. And about 2 weeks ago, there was a tremendous chorus of them just in the field, just in front of our house. I set the recorder up, of course, by which time they'd gone. Later on in the night, I got a little bit more of a recording of them, but I keep putting the recorder out there at night just in hope that they will come back, but they don't like to be as predictable as that. So anyway, the orioles are nice. I really like that. I mean, I remember from in England that it was very rare. I don't know whether it's the same now. There was only one place in Norfolk where you could hear them. I remember the first time going up in a nice summer's afternoon and hearing those. That was brilliant. So I've always had some affection for the golden orioles.
Well, thank you very much, Frank. Steve.
Hello, I'm Steve Senior from North Norfolk in the UK, and my sound of summer is chattering swallows.
Right, excellent. Who doesn't love a swallow? Chris. Chris, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. Sorry. Chris Hales. I'm speaking from Switzerland. I'm also eating my dinner, which is why I had everything turned off just then. I don't have to entertain you with that.
I do apologize.
I'm getting towards the end of the queue here. Yes, I identify with orioles very much and bee eaters. I'd love to identify with crickets, but over recent years, I've lost a lot of my high frequency hearing. So I can see the spectrograms, but I can't necessarily hear them when I'm out in the field. I think I would then go for, somebody said swifts, didn't they? Black kite mewing away. We get a lot of them in my neighborhood in the summertime, and it's always a sound I love to hear.
Oh, interesting. That's a bit of a unusual one, I think. Well, thank you very much for that. Clive.
When he just joined, so I don't know what the question was.
Introduce yourself, where you are, and your sound of summer.
Right, I'm from Stafford in the Midlands, in the UK. And my sound of summer. I'll go for tree pipits.
Okay.
Because there's plenty of those up on Cannock Chase near where I live, so I hear them regularly.
Right.
So
good. not nightjars.
As well.
Okay. Andy. Andy?
Hello, me?
Yeah?
No, I was just saying that blackback gulls are my summer sound. They've been breeding on the roofs of various industrial type buildings just close to us, and every so often they have a set to in the sky, either beating off buzzards or sparrowhawks or whatever, and they've just been breeding fairly successfully around us. And they do make a hell of a noise.
They do indeed. Thank you very much. Mike. Are you there, Mike? Okay, we'll move on to Thomas.
I'm tempted to say that my sound of summer is the hum of the air conditioning here in Phoenix, Arizona, that's really often the but we spend a good bit of time north of here along the Verde River, which has a really rich riparian forest. Its length and the sounds that I most commonly associate with those times are the common yellowthroats.
Superb. Right, thank you very much. And then finally, my name is Hans. I'm based in the Midlands in the UK as well. I am a scatterling of Africa, so I have to admit, for me personally, the sound of summer has to be a woodland kingfisher, which unfortunately I don't have a recording of yet. But I hope to fix that sometime soon, now that we can travel again freely. Okay, so now we'll go to the part where we actually play back the recordings.
Before you jump in, can I please ask you to make me a co-host so I can help you on the muting side of things?
Yep, not a problem.
Thank you.
Forgive me, where we've had this before. Where do I do that again?
Go on my name, more on the side, and then...
Okay. There we go. Thank you very much for that, Axel.
No worries.
Right, so now we do go to Reaper. Do you want me to share my screen?
Sorry, Hans, I muted you.
Yeah, I was going to say, how come I may have muted myself? Okay, there we go. So, can everybody see my screen? Excellent. Right. Our first recordings this evening are from Sue Gould, who's also down in your, well, when I say your neck of the woods, Andrew, I mean as in south of the equator. I don't know whether she's exactly in your neck of the woods. But yes, she unfortunately, obviously, is having some problems, and by the sounds of it,
She's Australian based.
Oh, okay, sorry. I do apologise for that. That didn't clarify that. Yes, so it's rather, as I'm sure Andrew will attest to, stupid o'clock in the morning over there. And by the sounds of it, she had a bit of a late night last night. So it was sort of touch and go whether she would be with us this evening. But we have her recordings, which at the end of the day, let's be honest, that's what we're here for. As much as it would be nice to have Sue here, at least we've got her recordings. So her first track, I'll just read the notes that she sent us. The first track is an, Andrew, you might have to correct me on the pronunciation, but her first one is an Eastern coal or a Pacific coal, which apparently is a large cuckoo, about 41 centimeters. It migrates northward for the austral winter and returns to the east coast of Australia during the austral summer. It is often also referred to as the storm bird as it accompanies the wet season rains. It is reviled by many for its loud and monotonous vocalizations, but for me, this is one of the sounds of summer that I love. So, yeah, we have people. If everybody can mute themselves, please, and then I will play the Eastern Cool.
I cannot hear it.
No, it's not playing for me either.
Nor me.
Unmute yourself, Hans. Try again.
Right. So that was quite a nice sound, but I can see how that can get. I mean, yeah, coming from Southern Africa, we have the red-chested cuckoo, which can get just as. Yeah, it's all very good and well the first time you hear it in the season, and then by the end of the season, it's kind of you almost can't wait for winter.
Is that something they hear throughout Australia? Is Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get one. I get one in my backyard.
Wow. It's quite a sound.
But it doesn't hang around too much, and so it's not annoying. It's quite nice.
It's fantastic.
But the other bird, by the way, that we hear doing the chip chip, that's an eastern yellow robin. So it must be early in the morning because that's the sound they make in the morning.
Right.
Well,
and the other sound of summer in there was the mosquito.
I was just going to say yes.
We started in my left ear and ended up around the back of my neck somewhere. Yeah, but no, there was something calling quietly in the background. I don't know. Obviously, I have no idea what they are.
I couldn't pin that one down.
No. No, it's lovely. It sounds very good. But Sue's a superb recording, so yeah, it was really good.
No, that was indeed very lovely.
Very nice.
So, give us the correct pronunciation of that, Andrew.
Cole.
Cole. Okay, right. So I do apologise for butchering your local avifauna.
That's right. Most Australians wouldn't know what it was anyway. So
okay.
They know it. They know it as a storm bird.
Oh, okay, right.
And by the way, they're sort of black with red eyes, about the size of a crow. That's the male that you're hearing.
Okay.
And the female is sort of brown and checkered and looks like a cuckoo with a big fantail.
And then Sue says it migrates northward for the winter. Is that just an intra-Australian migrant, or sort of to?
I think it actually goes all the way out
Southeast
to New
Asia?
Guinea and
Okay.
Southeast Asia.
Right.
The one in Southeast Asia, I know, the koal there, I think is a different subspecies actually, and it sounds a bit different than this one. I used to live in Malaysia and Singapore, where it was at first not a common bird, but it parasitizes the nests of house crows. And as house crows populations have increased in populated areas, so the koals have increased and have moved south down the Malay Peninsula. And these days in Singapore, it drives all the people in the high rises crazy, because that call echoes around, and they go well into the nighttime calling like that. And I think the name koal, the last part of the spectrogram that you're looking at there, the small one, is because it sings koal, koal, koal. So everybody in Southeast Asia calls them koals.
Okay. Well, thanks for that bit of information, Chris. Right, her next recording, her notes are as follows. A pair of fan-tailed cuckoos. These birds are a partial migrant and are most noticeable and vocal in southeastern Australia during spring and summer when they are breeding. My apologies if the flies are a bit too long. I've already cut some big gaps out and didn't want to take out any more, because when you look at it in a spectrogram, you can see the gradual increase in intensity and rising frequency. Okay, here we go. Fantail cuckoos from Sue Gould. So, those occur your neck of the wood as well, Andrew?
Yeah, but I wouldn't have recognised that as a fantail cuckoo. I'm sure it is, because the part of it, the last little bit where you can hear it trilling. That's what I usually hear, just doing that. But all that other stuff, I wouldn't have recognised. I'll keep an ear out for that.
Oh, good. So she taught you something about your own birds.
Yeah.
And there was obviously a kookaburra in the background going crazy as well. Is that a laughing kookaburra?
Must have filtered that out. Didn't hear it.
Oh, okay, right. Trash bird, is it?
No.
I didn't get that
I was
either.
just concentrating on the cuckoo. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You wanted to hear you want to listen for the kookaburra then, Andrew? Well, Andrew doesn't probably care. You want to hear it? You want to listen again then, Ian?
When did you get it? I didn't get the kookaburra.
No, and it sounded like there was quite a few in the background, sort of going backwards and forwards. I'll play again.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't listening for that.
Not a problem. At least I wasn't hearing things that weren't there. Right. So, next up then, Steve Senior. Can you sort of tell us about your recording, please?
Yeah, I'd gone to the Norfolk Wildlife Trust Reserve at Cley on the coast to do an early morning recording, but there was too much noise coming from the waves crashing on the shingle beach. So I headed into one of the hides just to have a look out there and see what was going on. And to my surprise, there were 2 pairs of swallows attempting to nest in there. They had about 5 nests on the go, each of them. And I just sat for about an hour watching them bickering and chattering away while they were trying to decide which nest they were going to actually continue building. And it was just a nice hour. I don't think I actually looked out of the hide at the rest of the reserve.
Oh, good. So it was obviously fairly quiet enough in the hide, not much traffic in the hide, let's put that way.
Well, it was about 4:30 in the morning, so there was nobody there.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Right. Well, here we go.
Yep.
Oh, lovely range of calls.
Yeah, I just love that little trill that they do at the end. It's just
I was going to say
fantastic.
exactly the same thing. I do love that little trill thing that they do. And they don't always seem to do that though, because I've been trying to record them in sort of literally like waiting for the little trill, and it just doesn't happen.
Ah, okay. I mean, listening to them calling between each other and all the little noises they were making when they were chattering and deciding between them who was going to build the nest and whatever. There were some of those trills just on their own, which I've not heard just on their own. It's always been at the end of that sort of run of call.
They didn't mind you being in there, Steve, then?
Beg pardon?
They didn't seem to mind you being in the hide while they
No, they were literally 6-7 feet from my head.
Well,
it was fantastic. And I think they leave the shutters down through the night and all day, obviously, and they just come in and out, and they can't mind people because it must get very busy during the day.
Yeah.
suppose they're quite used to the people there being a public space, like a
yes, I think so.
Nature reserve.
It was very clear that. What were you using, Steve?
It was I'll see if I can get the video up. A homemade, a set of these PUI AOM 5024 microphones with a sort of SAS head, but it's like a dome. It's half a polystyrene ball between the two microphones.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
It was indeed. Right.
Well, my wife is the expert on swallows here, because we have them here. And she says they're shriller. These ones are shriller than the ones we have. And also, certainly towards the end, it was a male, she says. Do you know whether it was a male or a female?
I don't, unfortunately, know.
No, I can't tell the difference, but my wife is very expert at that. What was happening were the chicks in the nest? Was it before the eggs had been laid, or what?
No, it was one pair mainly that I guess maybe it was their first summer, and they were just trying to decide which nest to continue building. There was about 5 or 6 nests on the go.
That's right, yes.
And they would come in with a beak full of mud and mess about on one nest, and then they go together and chatter between themselves. Then one would go off to another nest and put another mud ball on there. Complete chaos.
Yeah, we get them nesting in one nest for the first brood, and then they'll use a different nest for the second brood.
Okay.
You know, so
that's very interesting, because they sound different from one country to another.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where were they recorded?
This was on the Norfolk coast at the Clyde Nature Reserve.
Right.
Clear, yeah.
Okay, clear. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah, lovely.
And thank you, Hans, for admitting my late submission.
No, it's fine. It wasn't late. It's never too late. There's always time for one more.
Yes, very nice.
And it was well worth it.
Thank you.
Definitely, it's a lovely recording. And I must say that they're one of those birds as well, that because they're sort of closely associated with man or human, with buildings and things like that, they can be really hard to record well without too much, anthropomorphic noise.
Yeah, I mean, there's some strange noises that were coming off of the beach where the waves were crashing on the shingle.
Sounded
and
like
it. It's really, really odd noises. But I managed to get maybe just about far enough away.
No, that was very nice. Right, next recording we have is from Linda Burrows, who's not in tonight. But being that we don't have too many recordings, I thought I'll play it anyway. But before we do that, Sue has joined us. Sue, good evening. We have already played your recordings. Is there anything more that you would like to add about those recordings other than what the notes that you sent me? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I've been awake for all of about 2 minutes so far. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
The coels in particular, they're just eastern coels is a bird that a lot of people really dislike them because they're just so persistently vocal during summertime here. But I love them.
Good. Well, they sound very good to me. Right. Anyway, as I was saying, Linda Burrows sent us a recording unfortunately with not a lot of information. But apparently this is Barbados, and the only comment that she makes is summer and winter sound pretty much the same. And if nothing else, goes to show you can make a halfway decent recording on a phone if you really put in the effort.
Until it runs out of storage.
Yes, obviously. But then that's no different to a recorder, you know. I mean, if you don't have storage, you don't have storage, no matter what you're recording on.
Yeah. Weird. What was the description, Hans?
It's just all that you can tell us is, Bob. Let's have a quick. Wrong one. Come on, Axel. Tell me where should I be looking?
Yeah, well done. That was it.
Was it item property? So why is it not giving me anything in there?
Do you have it in the notes?
No, like I say, I didn't have anything. It's literally just what's in the file name.
Click on.
But hold on a second. I'll get the file name now from the over here. Just give me a second.
I was going to take a guess. It sounds like a night recording to me. I've never been to Barbados, but in tropical forests, insects and frogs sound a lot like that.
Insects or frogs. Yeah. All she says is all she gives me is Barbados and Gibbs Beach, and that would be Gibbs Gibbbe. So I'm assuming it's Gibbers Beach. And then she just made a comment in her email that said summer and winter sound the same.
It looks like there's some high frequencies in there which don't correlate to what's the main bit low down. There's some very high frequency and then something else a bit lower down towards the end. So whether there's some crickets in there or something.
I think the upper lot is
up.
That right there. Yeah, I think that's crickets, but I think this down here is probably with the phone talking to her. The phone bemoaning the sad state of storage.
Yeah, that was it.
Anyway, good thing you were talking, Paul, because you were up next.
Yeah. I had struggled to record anything this year with the weather we've had. So I dug up something from a few years back, which is hornets. A friend of mine, when he built or converted his barns, he actually left a hole in the wall, supposed to be for a nest box, but I don't think birds have ever used it. And one year the hornets took over. So the hornets, they had a little window in his bedroom, and so you could view the nest from the bedroom, and the hornets sort of shot up a tube and out at the side of the house near the roof. And in fact, it was used by a film crew a few weeks before I recorded this, which was Tales from the Village, which is all about the wildlife in a French village. But I think quite a bit of it was actually shot in Britain. But if you ever see it on the BBC, the hornets were actually shot in Devon. And so to record it, I stuck two Sennheiser ME64s either side of the entrance with a bit of netting over them, and left it to record for an hour or so. And this is what I got.
Okay, here we go. This is what he got. Yes, it's a bit close for comfort.
Really cool.
Precisely what I was thinking. It's exactly the same words.
Yeah,
it was brilliant. Yeah,
it was about nine feet up. So the mics were on a long pole. I kept well away from them, although they're supposed to be quite not as bad as wasps. But they all seem to fly off in the same direction, which was interesting. We did find them in the garden of the house, and they were chewing ash tree bark, a young sapling, and they were just gnawing the bark. I actually stuck a mic next to them, but they took offence to that, and it was a little Sony ECM55, I think it was, and it was held on with elastic band, and they actually chewed the elastic band. They didn't like it at all.
It's rather intelligent of them to know that if they chewed up the elastic band, the mic would fall off.
Well, yeah, it didn't last very long. Put it that way, you saw a bit floppy after a time. Okay. I tried to record them at the nest as well, and they didn't like that either. And they again chewed the elastic band that was holding on the mic to the support.
Interesting.
Now
there's a pattering noise in the sort of low frequency section of that recording, Paul. Is that them sort of moving across the nest or something else?
I doubt if it's the nest. It could be them going up and down the tunnel.
Okay.
From the nest to the exit.
Okay, right.
I did. Stephen, whose house this is, he has them. He has two owl boxes in either end of the house, and the hornets used to quite often take over one of the owl boxes, and there they'll end up with a nest 18 inches in diameter, huge. Huge compared with this one. This was only a size of a large tennis ball, maybe a little bit bigger. And the I tried recording at the big nest, and I stuck the mic outside the hole, and they kept on hitting the mic. They kept on flying into it. They're absolutely useless. They couldn't see where they were going. They were just coming out, poof, poof, just hitting it each time. So they're not very bright.
Paul, I think you need to do a risk assessment for your recording.
So I bet you didn't say that to them to their face, though, Paul.
No, I didn't. No. But I've got a set of poles, set of 3 aluminium poles, and I stick the mic on top of that, and they're about 1 meter long. So I don't sit next to the nest. They are quite some distance from it.
Well, to me, it doesn't sound like 1 meter long. That sounds like 1 meter short.
Yes, yeah. We've had them in dormouse boxes. And they. You're right. The nest is just about fits in a dormouse box, but we stand well clear of them, though.
Yes, I've come across them a few times buzzing around the garden. In fact, I found a nest the other day in the bottom of an ash tree in a field when I was doing survey work. So I might go and have another look at that one and see if it's recordable.
Paul, I have it on good authority that they are less likely to sting you than a bee or a wasp, but it is worse. So
thank you.
You could try it out for us if that's true.
Yes.
And they can also sting
Just
repeatedly.
can I? Sorry, just going back to them. Just going back to them banging against the microphone. I just wonder if that actually was accidental or whether it's something they do deliberately. For example, they've seen something alien thing there near their nest and they want to suss out what it is. You know, bang into it and see how it reacts. You know.
It certainly, it wasn't one or two. It was nearly every other one that hit it.
Yeah, well,
it could be.
Couldn't be an accident then, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a recording on a sound magazine some years ago of somebody recording a hornet's nest, and they stuck a Ryko next to it, and because it looks like a deadly great badger, they took offence to it and they just stung the Ryko continually. They got quite upset by that. That's on one of the old sound magazines. So yeah, luckily I touch wood, I haven't got that close to them to warrant being stung yet.
What I find, we do apple juice so that there's very often there's a whole lot of them if you're pressing the apples. But I found you've got to be pretty careful, but they don't sting under those situations. The time when they will sting is if you go near their nest. That's when they. But when they're just buzzing around feeding, if anything, they're actually fairly docile.
Yeah, I'll.
There's a good. I don't know if people know a thing called Infinite Monkey Cage on Radio 4, but there's one bees versus wasps, and it's very funny but also very informative. And yeah, wasps are given a far worse press than they really ought to have, I think. From what so yeah, the wasps and hornets and bees are just wasps, but not quite as old. In evolutionary terms.
Yeah, I got stung by a wasp last year, and I was just walking down a road, and it just flew into me, and it just stung me. Has no apparent reason. Well, at the time I didn't think there was a reason. I did look around later on, and I found there was a nest in the ground quite close by, but I certainly wasn't anywhere near it, and it just flew straight at me and just stung me in the side of the face. So
obviously you're being quite near the nest is a matter of opinion then.
Yes, for a wasp.
Yeah, certainly.
The thing is that will have given off a pheromone that would have attracted others if there is there's signalling going on at the same time as that. So
yeah, I didn't hang about.
No, that was the point of stinging you.
Wise decision. Well, thank you very much for that, Paul.
Okay.
Frank.
Yes.
You're next.
Righto. Yes, this is a golden oriole, which was singing in the field. I was working in the field, and we've got a row of poplars down the middle of the field, and they had been singing actually for a few days in this location. This was the first time I'd got around to putting the recorder out, well, there's just a little bit of a recording of it. It's mono. Just with the Zoom F6 with a Ian Brady microphone. That's that.
Okay, thank you very much. Here goes. Lovely. And Frank, Sue Gould would like to know where that was recorded, if you don't mind answering her question. Frank?
Yes. I had my microphone switched off. So, sorry, what was the question?
Sue would like to know where that was recorded.
It's the northern France. Well, the Loire Valley the Loire Valley, which is not actually the north of France, but it's northwest vaguely if you look at the map of France. And it's on our piece of land, where, as I say, there is right down the middle of the strip of land, there's a row of poplar trees, which they sometimes come along and sing there. I've always assumed, we tend to get in this time of year, I've always assumed it's the young who have recently come out of the nest, but I'm never quite sure with any bird anyway that when they actually start singing, whether the young orioles recently hatched or are recently leaving the nest, whether they sing straight away or not. No idea. Perhaps somebody knows.
I mean, looking at other birds, I would have thought not, to be quite honest, but I can't say that definitively.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear that.
I said, based on my experience of other birds, I would have thought not, but don't take my word for it.
Yes, you might be right. So so I don't know. I think it's too late to be at the beginning of the nesting season.
So do they not tend to put in a second brood then?
Yeah,
in your experience,
possibly they do. I have to confess, I don't know where they nest. I haven't seen any evidence of actually where they nest, and I just haven't been able to keep a track of them. All I know is that sometimes at certain times during the year, we get this lovely chorus. Yeah, complete ignorance, I'm afraid.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. It is such a lovely liquid call. I mean,
yeah,
it's a beautiful voice.
Yes.
Steve Senior says it could have been the Australian outback if it wasn't for the chaffinch and the wood pigeon.
Yeah.
Right, the next recording that I'm going to play is from David Delahaye. He's unfortunately got family commitments tonight, last minute, so won't be with it. He's not sitting with us tonight. But this is a recording made amongst water crowfoot and water forget-me-not on a sunny afternoon in his garden pond. That's certainly something different.
It sounds like a siren.
Yeah, I was going to. It's amazing how rhythmic it is, isn't it?
Really rhythmical. Would love to just analyze how precise they are in their rhythm.
Well, I remember when we were in Wales earlier this year, James and I picked up that the it's a bad comparison, I know, but the rhythm seems to be dependent on how much sunlight there is, because as soon as they sort of a cloud came over, the rhythm would sort of slow down quite considerably, and the intervals would be a lot bigger, and then the pace picks up as soon as the sun comes out again.
Isn't it? Aren't they making this sound because of photosynthesis?
Yeah,
Am I stupid now?
It's supposed. I think I've read somewhere that that's basically as they're releasing the air bubbles.
Yeah. So in theory, yeah, the more sun, the more bubbles.
Yeah, I think you do.
Oxygen,
I've seen that.
Where is David when we need him?
Exactly.
Really cool recording, though.
It is very interesting. Right. Thanks for that, David. Next up, Clive.
Yeah, hi. So this is a recording of storm petrels on an audio moth with a remote mic, and it's a mono recording. Why it looks like a stereo, I don't know, but it's probably something I've done wrong. But it's definitely a mono recording, and it's from 2021 when I went with a local ringing group to an uninhabited island off the Isle of Tongue. So it was probably 1 o'clock in the morning. It didn't go dark till about 12:30. So you had like a 3-hour period of darkness when the storm petrels returned into the nests. And I was in this gully, and I suddenly realised that there's a storm petrel calling from a crack behind me. So I just popped the mic into this crack, and amazingly happened to choose the one where a bird returned, because they can be away for 2 or 3 days. So it's a storm petrel returning to its nest, and then there's a bit of a chat between the storm petrels when it gets in. So that's it.
Okay. There goes. What an incredible sound.
It was weird. It was really spooky because, like I say, until it got dark, nothing appeared. I mean, I've been sitting there for about 2 hours, and then suddenly, just as obviously it got dark enough because they're predated by the blackback gulls. So the greater blackback gulls are just flying around waiting for them. So they won't come in until the light has dropped considerably, and then they just fly past you. And you can imagine this gully is probably about 12 foot wide. So these things, I'm just sitting on the ground and they're just whizzing past, but they've never seen the cracks that they nest in. So everything that they do is, when they're nesting, is in the dark. So it's absolutely incredible how they can find their way back to the right crack. Bearing in mind, it's probably at the most an inch wide, if that. They're just fantastic. It's the best. It's one of the best experiences, nature-wise, that I've ever had. And I'd never seen a storm petrel before. And by the end of the 4 days we were there, I must have held about 60 because they rang about 600-700, I think, in total. But yeah, it was a great crack. I really enjoyed it. But I just think, for me, using audio moth, if you can get really close, you can get a pretty good recording. So yeah, that's why I sent it in. I enjoyed it.
Definitely, no, it's a lovely recording. Do you think they use some, sort of low-level echolocation then to find their,
to be honest, I don't know, but I mean, maybe the sight is better at night. I'm not sure, but honestly, I mean, you can't believe how they can find these nests in a huge, I mean, there's some areas we went to where the main ringing was going on, where you've just got a huge cliff face, and it's just riddled with cracks, and they're just straight in, no problem. But they batter. You can hear that one. It's not gentle. They come in at pace and just batter straight into the crack. And you could hear it all around all night long. You just hear them hitting the rocks as they were coming in. So fabulous birds. It was great fun. I wanted to go back this year, but unfortunately they didn't go. So, but I mean, I had perfect conditions. We went there. There was no wind. There was no midges. And there was no rain for 4 days in Scotland. So I think perhaps I should just accept that'll never happen again and never go back.
Yeah, but you can always try.
Yeah, it was good crack though. I enjoyed it.
Fantastic sounds though, Clive. Well done. That undulating drone that I was hearing an undulating drone and then occasional squawks that sounded like they came from two birds. But
That's
that
right.
undulating drone, is that the two of them chorusing together or something like that?
That's the partner that's in the crack makes that constant call. So when you're standing by a colony, all you hear all night is that noise, and there must be, perhaps there's a slight difference that the partner can recognise as it's coming in, so that we can't recognise it, but they can, a bit like a sheep, how it can recognise its young or I suppose it's the same with penguins. They do it, don't they? When they come back to the colony, they can, and all sorts of birds. But yeah, that constant drone. I have to say that by the end of the night, you've had enough of it.
Worse than the coels, huh?
It's unbelievable. And when they were ringing, that's all they play. They just play that constantly at full volume to track the birds in. So yeah, it does drive you mad after a bit.
Yes, too much of a good thing isn't.
I can contribute some experiences about the storm petrel.
Yes,
I was in long years ago. I could take part on a visitor and also uninhabited island north of the Scottish coast. The name was Island One, and I got some results of the ringing actions there. One is one bird became 35 years old. Another one was found dead on the coast of South Africa. And another bird was ringed one day in Scotland and found the other day in a colony in Norway. And later, 2 days later, it was back in Scotland.
That's the same island burned. That's the one I went to.
Ah, yes. Oh,
Nanron.
great.
Island
Great.
Nanron. Fabulous place.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Fabulous.
Wow.
And we sailed over. We met the local
from Betty Hill, I think.
With a little boat.
Yes, from Betty Hill.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yes.
Yeah, it was great fun, and the campsite was where the deserted houses are, and we could sit there during the day, and people would shout out when the minke whale was coming past. There was minke whales coming past all the time, and they were just shouting "minke whale," and you look down and see them swim, because the sea was as flat as a pancake. There wasn't a breath of wind, and I'm trying to think now. I can't remember the ages of the birds, but there was recoveries of some that we heard about later that came from Norway and a few other different places. But yeah, I mean, the ringing science is just dead interesting. Very, very interesting.
Very good.
So good. I'm glad you've been the same place.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that, Clive. Axel.
Is it already?
Yeah.
All right. So what's happening? I'm in Portugal now. I'm currently not living in my car full time. I'm staying with my girlfriend's. And yesterday, well, I usually live in my car, and the beautiful thing is that even when I cook a meal or have a coffee, sometimes something happens because I'm in the middle of the forest or whatever, and I hear something, and I'm like, all right, cool, that's interesting. And yesterday we were having coffee under a tree before 12 o'clock, because at 12 o'clock is the moment when you have to be at home because it's just too hot now to be outside. We were there having a coffee, and then we hear some bee eaters just flying overhead, and I was like, oh yes. I mean, I've tried to record bee eaters for a while now, and I never managed to get some decent recordings. So then we started following them, or at least going where this big flock was going. Hello?
Carry on.
Okay. And we drove for, I think, 10 minutes on off-road truck until we reach a point where there is a hill, and we see these bee eaters up there, like quite a lot of them. We decided to walk up this hill. It was already 12, so we were burning. We reached the top of the hill, and we are literally greeted by, I don't know, a flying group of like 40, 50 bee eaters just flying overhead, like 10 meters high. 10, and then they kept going high, and that was an amazing experience, obviously. And we decided to leave the recorders last night out there, and we came and went and picked them up again in the late morning. I left my Reynolds first order ambisonic mic with F6, and then yeah, we've got these recordings. They were there the whole day, really, since early mornings, and it was just really nice to be able to record them and experience them. So please.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And something I wanted to ask to the members is, at some point they made this sound which I never heard before, and I wasn't there, and that's they made the same sound. They made the same sound another time when it was only them there. So I don't think it's another bird. Maybe it's them making that sort of weird call, which I never heard before. So I don't know if anyone has heard it before, or maybe it's something else. But and I like the little like flying around. It was really three-dimensional. Like if you wear headphones, it really sounds like this bothering you. Nice situation.
Well, I haven't heard many bee eaters, but I've certainly never heard that little piece you were describing there.
Mm.
Can you play it again? I've recorded bee eaters in Spain quite a bit, so I think that noise is the bee eaters, though.
Mm.
Yeah,
If you
just towards the
play it
end,
again.
Okay, here it goes.
It's literally in the middle, that more yellow area.
Okay, you want me to go straight there then?
Yeah. This one.
Yeah.
No, that's something else. I've not picked that up before.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I've not recorded that when I've been recording bee eaters.
I've only just got back to and listen to that beautiful sound, but was this near the nest holes, or were they just flying around then? Because
I don't know. We haven't found the nest. We haven't found the colony nest, but there are so many there. The nest must be down around there somewhere in this hill, I think.
Right, because when I have never recorded them to that level. I've got them, but they used to fly around in the morning and in the evening, back and forth in little. And when the group of them got together, they always came out with sort of a twittering sound that wasn't the same as the normal bee eater. The call we actually take to be bee eaters. But so yeah, I think they've got this sort of bit like sand martins. When you get sand martins near in a colony, when they're flying around, they make that call. But then when they get near the nest hole, they have this sort of much more close sound that sort of is almost like a one-to-one communication rather than a general twittering, general call. So I have never heard it. I'm not saying I've heard it, but it's probably something along those lines.
Okay.
But it's a real European sound, and will become more British in the not too distant future. But
was it near the start of the breeding season, Axel? Were they still?
It was last week, didn't you say?
No, this morning.
This morning. All right.
Yeah.
So it could be young as well then.
Yeah, juveniles maybe.
Yeah.
Yep.
It could be juveniles then. Yeah, we're gonna scout a little bit more that hill. Maybe we find the nest holes, or maybe they're just moving. I mean, it's quite late, so I'm guessing they're also. I mean, they're gonna start going down south unless they are resident, which I'm not sure they become resident in southern, in the south of the Iberian Peninsula. I think they still migrate, bee eaters. So yeah, we're gonna check. We're gonna keep updated.
Yeah, I think they intra-African. I think they migrate down to. Well, I know they go as far as South Africa anyway.
Yeah, but I was just thinking that maybe because some birds just stay in the house martins, for example, stay in the southern area of Spain. House martins, and they're not swift. I don't think swifts or swallows. So I thought that maybe also bee eaters.
But the according to website, the European bee eaters basically fly down to West and South Africa. Well, some of them go to the eastern side, like Mozambique area, I guess, down that area. They are the residents in South Africa, Hans. Is that right?
Yeah, I think some of them don't necessarily migrate, or they just are sort of what's the word? Migrate, but sort of just up to the
Disperse.
tropics and back.
Right.
Not much further. They don't actually cross the tropics.
Yeah, they disperse. There is not much information on the migrationatlas.org website also.
I was going to say that in general, I think the problem is that sort of information is hard to come by because, or not hard to come by, I suppose it is, it is hard to come by because it's very difficult to get that sort of information from ring recoveries. And I don't know of anybody who's done any sort of satellite tracking type studies on bee eaters, to be honest.
Yeah, no, not that I can see here. They go to Mozambique. They have one recovery in Mozambique.
Yeah, they definitely occur in Mozambique, without a doubt.
All right. Thank you, Hans.
Thank you. Right, and then last two recordings for the evening. Quite a few of you mentioned crickets and insects. I don't have crickets, but what I do have is a great green bush cricket that I recorded on the marram grass on the dunes at Minsmere Nature Reserve in Suffolk, it is, if I remember correctly. So I'll play that. My mistake, I do apologise. But yes, as nice as they are, I do, however, think, as I mentioned when we started out this evening, as a scatterling of Africa, for me, the bird that says summer is Southern African, or in Southern Africa anyway, is the woodland kingfisher. But obviously they don't occur up here. So I have to come up with a European, or a bird that does occur in Europe. And when it comes to that, I have to say, I think someone else mentioned it earlier this evening, for me, the sound of summer is this common swift. Sue, these were recorded in a town called Hamar in Norway, about sort of 90 kilometers north of Oslo. And there's I don't know what's the correct sort of term for it. It's sort of a cultural museum, one of these things where they got sort of them old school type houses that they used to live in and that sort of thing. So there's like a couple of houses, and these birds were literally, they were obviously feeding, but it looked like they were having great fun, slicing between, in and out between the eaves of these houses, cutting, trying to leave their turns and time them to the absolute last minute. And that's why I quite liked about the recording as well, or why I tried to record that, because you can hear their wings cutting through the air.
It was really, that was superb. There's some calls in there that it's just so close and you just don't get that. You try to record that in Britain, you just get traffic. But that is just, that was superb.
Yeah.
They're really good.
Really nice recording house.
Yeah.
Really nice.
What did you use to record it? Was it the
Sony,
parabolic? Or?
No, just a Sony PCM 100 and a pair of Brady mics.
Right.
Just sort of stacked out. They had like a sort of old school style, not picket fencing in the sense that we think of it today, but old fence, and just literally had one microphone, one fence post, and sort of 300-400 millimeters down the fence, stuck the other microphone in.
Yeah. Classic
AB,
Omnis, spaced Omnis. No, it was very nice. Yeah, that is the British sound of summer to me. That's
I agree with you.
And lots of European countries. If you go to most, and you'll hear it when you hear people being interviewed on the radio or on the television. You'll either in the street. You quite often have the screaming swift in the background, which is superb.
And to me as well, it is very much a sound of summer as well. Some of the other birds we heard this evening, you can hear in spring as well. But I must say, I've never really heard the swallows in spring. To me, they've much more summer.
Swifts.
Swifts. They're much more summer birds than they are spring birds as far as vocalization.
Well, they do tend to get here. They arrive later. They're always a little bit later. Not every year. There have been occasional years when the swifts have got here before the swallows, but usually it's the swifts come later, and they certainly go a lot earlier. They are. They are very transient. They don't stay very long, but when they are here, they may, and they're a lot bigger than you expect. If you ever walk along a reservoir banking and there's a good fly lift, they come quite close, and they're not small. They're not small. They're really good. They're very good.
Sadly, I've no swifts in my area this year. I haven't seen any.
None.
No.
Oh, wow.
Pretty poor.
Well, I was going to say. That's a great recording, Hanson. But I've heard far fewer swifts just over our house this year than I can remember in previous years. I think it's also when there's sort of family parties of them that they're quite vocal. That's one reason why it's later on, sort of now time really. But
they've gone now. They've all gone from here. The only ones who people are getting now are in passage. So they've long since. But about up to the end of July, they were flying around and screaming. I had about 35, 40 around over Rottenstall the other week.
All right.
Yeah, they were. But as you say, that's a family. They're family groups. But I think there's a big push on to get builders to put swift holes in the walls. But they actually nest in quite low. You expect them to be higher up, but they nest around here in quite low terraced houses under the eaves. So it's they're good. But Back to the bee eater thing. According to the Birds of the Western Palearctic, which my book is mine are quite old, but they say they exclusively migrate to southern Africa or to Africa. They don't stay at all in Europe. Now that might be 20-year-old, and there might be new data from that. But BWP basically was saying that all our European bee eaters do move down. But the ones in South Africa might actually be a slightly different group. They might not, so they might be a subspecies somewhere. But anyway, but no, swifts definitely a summer bird.
My friend he lives about half a mile from me. He's put 4 boxes up on the side of his house, and then he's put his speaker, and when the beginning of May, end of April, beginning of May, switches it on and calls them in. And I think he put the boxes up 4 years ago. The first year he got what I termed as bangers, which is they come flying past the boxes and they just hit them as they fly past to see if anything else is in them, and to sort of test what they're like. And then the second year, I think out of his 4 boxes, he had 2 that they nested in. But it's a constant stream. Once they're here, we're in a small WhatsApp group, about 4 of us who watch the birds on the reserve that's just below us. And as soon as they're in this nest box, all we get is a constant stream of messages on WhatsApp about what the swifts are doing. And he has the best fun ever sitting in his conservatory, listening to them screaming as they come past the side of his house. But yeah, they are in trouble. I think the numbers of boxes or the numbers of nest sites they need to find in the UK is 300,000 to just replace the lost birds, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I think that's down to, a lot of it's down to building regulations, because of the way that houses have to be built now. There's no spaces under the eaves for them to get into loft spaces anymore.
Yeah, there's an interesting article in this quarter's British Wildlife all about swifts and their use of boxes, and there certainly seems to be quite a successful way of getting them back into housing is to put up a box. If you can get hold of a copy of British Wildlife, it's a good article to read.
Had some boxes installed in a church tower near to me, so that might be another location where they could be usefully deployed.
It's a shame. I remember as a kid, we used to go to Anglesey on holiday, and Menai Bridge and Bow Maris. You could walk down the main street in the summer, and it would just be full of screaming swifts. Whether it's gone or it's the same now, I don't know. I've not been there for years. But it was just, you're right, it is the sound of summer. Unbelievable.
I used to hear them in screaming down Guildford High Street overnight. It was fantastic. But I haven't seen it for years now.
I wonder if it's partially linked to the decline in the insect population.
I just about to say exactly the same. Yeah, exactly.
I've once seen tree nesting swifts in Rothiemurcus Forest on Speyside, just erupting out from a canopy first thing in the morning. It's the only once and only time I've ever seen it.
If anybody's in Hunstanton, they nest on the cliffs. It's one of the few places, I think, where they actually still use it's a cliff nesting site.
Okay.
Certainly in the UK.
But what I find quite interesting is driving around in South Africa. They favour bridges on motorways and things like that, but they don't seem to do much of that I've noticed over here. I've seen swallows, but I haven't really seen many swifts nesting under the bridges.
Would that be a different species?
No, because the common or European swift migrates to southern Africa as well. I mean, we have a few other swifts that occur there as well, like the alpine swift and
Yeah, but they wouldn't be nesting in South Africa.
no, they do. It's the same as the swallows as well. They nest in South Africa as well. So they put in 2 broods a year.
I never knew that.
And the interesting thing is as well is that, because just before I left South Africa, we started doing a ringing project, and we were ringing swallows. There's definitely sort of 2 groups of swallows, shall we say, that end up in South Africa. The UK swallows tend to settle around sort of Johannesburg type area, so further up the more northern part of the country, and the European swallows ended up going further south. They would go to sort of Cape Town and KwaZulu-Natal, and they are pretty much, that's the route that they stick to. If you're a UK swallow, you don't go, you hit Johannesburg, you stop. Heaven alone knows why, but so that was quite interesting.
I think if you want to speak to somebody who knows what they're talking about when it comes to swifts and nest boxes and the like, is we have a member called Alan Wilkins, and they've got and some nest boxes with cameras and recordings and everything in a church tower. If you go on the South Notts Wildlife Trust website, there's a Kinalton, I think it's called Swift Project, and he's been doing it for a long number of years. He also goes over to Stockholm with Nick to do the Manx shearwaters and things as well. But yeah, he's been doing that for a long while, and I'm just looking here. It says 25. This was this year. 25 pairs bred so far. 10 nests with 3 chicks. 7 with 2. 16 nests on camera. So that was this year, and there's a website that you can go to look at it. So yeah, so Alan, if you ever meet up, he's more than happy to talk about the swifts and the projects he's been running and the recordings he's got.
Was he at the AGM, Ian?
He was, yes, yeah.
Yeah, I know you mean now.
Yeah, I was talking to him with Nick.
Yeah, that's right.
At the table, yeah.
Yeah, because they both go to Stockholm, don't they, together?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I've just looked it up here, actually. That's dead interesting, because I met with the one of the local Green Party councillors 2 weeks ago in relation to an attempt for the Bird Club, West Mids Bird Club, to do a Swift project in Stafford. So I'll get in touch with him. So it's Alan who, did you say, sorry?
Alan Wilkins.
Alan Wilkins. I'll get in touch with him. That'd be dead interesting.
No, he's more than happy to help.
Sound.
More than happy.
That'd be great. Thanks for that.
Well, good. Looks like we've come to the end
but
of.
But I didn't know that Swifts and Swallows bred in South Africa.
Yeah, no,
I did not know that.
They breed down south as well.
Mm.
We used to have a pair of swallows who bred just when I was a kid, right above our front door.
So how do they know where to come back to in Britain to nest then?
I have no idea, but it is. but I mean, migration is a fascinating thing, because I remember when, like I said, when I was ringing, I caught. We had a constant effort site on a farm just north of Johannesburg, and I suppose experience. We used to place the nets in pretty much the same sort of places on the homestead, and I remember catching a willow warbler. There was a control bird that had been ringed in the UK, and when I caught it, it was I think when we looked at the records, it was the 3rd time it had been caught in South Africa, and pretty much in exactly the same place. So they are pretty, pretty site. There's a lot of site fidelity when it comes to some of these birds.
Yeah, there is a lot, and I think there's a lot of people that are not really into ringing, but the amount of data and information you can get that proves that birds come back to virtually the same place where they were. A lot of them come back to virtually the same place where they were born.
Yeah.
So I mean which is so important if people are looking to do development in places. So you can a lot of councils I think have the opinion that birds will just move to a different area, but I think everybody knows now that once an area's developed, it's got proper bird population in it. They don't just go somewhere else. It's lost forever.
As I once told one, if the birds would move to another area, they would already be there.
That's right. That's dead right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Hard work trying to explain it.
Yeah.
But you're right, Clive. There's a lot of information that that we really can only get from ringing. I remember watching something quite a while ago about, I think it was one of the RSPB broadcasts, and there was someone in somewhere in Norfolk who was doing research on blackbirds. So they did a citizen science project and colouring the whole load of blackbirds, because there seemed to be this concept of my blackbird is the one who comes to my garden. And apparently they roam quite far and wide. There's no such thing as your blackbird.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a bit. I went to Spurn a couple of weeks ago and had 3 days up there, and I've always had this thing about colouring gulls, and I found I think 4 colouring gulls on Kilnsey wetlands. One was German. One was a Norwegian one. There was certainly a Czech one, but the German one I think it was 5 or 6 years old, and every year it's been clocked at Kilnsey wetlands in the early part of, or in the late, in sort of this time of year. Then in the winter it goes over to Pembrokeshire, spends the same amount of time virtually in Pembrokeshire, then comes back to Kilnsey wetlands, and then goes back to Leipzig where it breeds every year. And that's just fantastic science just from putting a ring on a bird.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same with twite. We have colouring twite, and we have very few now, unfortunately. But yeah, without that, they know that the Scottish birds go to one part for the winter, the British other birds go to the east, and but even locally, they're feeding stations for twite, and they can be 10 miles apart, and yet they move between the two feeding stations in the spring, just because they got colour rings on. You wouldn't know that otherwise. So yeah, it's really, really important information. We can't put satellite tracking on everything. So, brilliant.
This Motus is an interesting thing. I've not really got my head around it yet, but it sounds really, really cool. Because does anybody got any experience of Motus and what it does?
No idea what you're talking about.
Oh, it's a system where, as the bird flies past a recording station, which is just like an aerial setup, it gives a signal. So they've got them on the continent, they've got them in certain parts of the UK. I know there's one at Spurn and there's a few at other different observatories. And they clock these birds moving now between, in migration periods from the continent. They'll pick them up at a certain time, leaving Holland, and then a certain time they'll pass over. So once they've been caught and they've had this device fitted, it's only tiny.
Yeah. So it's like an RFID tag or something.
Yeah. Well, you've lost me there, but but it's just something that just fires a signal. And it just works. I don't know how long they work for. I think they work for ages. But that's a really, really interesting.
It sounds a bit like an Apple tag, one of these tag things.
Yeah. That's it.
Probably something along those lines. And I
think what they're trying to do is then. It's obviously the cost is the implication, but they're trying to get a network of them up all around the country, and then the data that would come back from that would just be amazing.
It's called Mortis, is it?
MOTU. I think it's MOTUS.
Right.
I think.
Never heard of it. All right. Interesting.
Just try and find it in a minute. Motus. But yeah, it's I've read a little bit about it, but not much. Yeah, Motus bird tracking.
In
fact,
school day.
I'll now read up about it properly. I'm not very good with instructions because I'm a man.
Ex-policeman, isn't it?
Oh, dreadful.
Sorry.
No, don't apologise.
Good stuff. Excellent. Really good.
Right, I was just going to say I'm going to stop the live stream to YouTube.
Goodbye, YouTube.
So goodbye everybody, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. And yes, we'll let you know when the next one comes out, hopefully in about 2 months' time.